The Top Knot Creative Show, the Top Knot Creative Show. Seeking super smart, super talented superheroes. How to be wow over the world and all around. The Top Knot Creative Show, the Top Knot Creative Show.
Hello everyone, this is Shantae Schrader and welcome to the show where we seek out the super smart, super talented, and basically the superheroes who are taking over the world and making it super wow. Today we are talking with Dr. Rebecca Thomley. Now let me tell you a little bit about Rebecca. She is the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer of Orion Associates, and a number of other extensions of that, which we'll find out more about that organization from her when we introduce her. But Dr. Thomley feels that the most important things in her life are her family, friendships, and clientele she serves. And she feels it's important to look for the commonality in understanding individuals. And she clearly brings this into the work that she does with Orion Associates. She has an education and qualifications for a position within the psychological field. And she has she has a bachelor's, she has a PhD, she has a number of masters. And her focus has been on certified rehabilitation counseling. She's a licensed psychologist and member of the National Association of Clinical Hypnosis. She's an amazing woman. She's doing amazing things at Orion Associates, and we couldn't be more excited to have her with us today. Rebecca, welcome to the show. Thank you for being with us.
Wow, what an introduction. Thanks for having me. I've got to live up to that now.
Well, there was so much more that I could have said. I was just like, oh, okay, I'm just going to keep going on and on. But you know what, let's talk about your extensive experience. You have a lot of education, a lot of qualifications, and when did you first zero in on psychology in particular as an interest for you?
I started out in undergraduate school in psych and criminal justice, and knew I wanted to go on either to law school or to pursue graduate work in psychology, and really it came down to where I could get some scholarship support. So it wasn't as well thought out then, although I do think ultimately in the end it was a good choice, since I don't think sitting in a library doing the amount of research and the detailed work of a lawyer I would be very good at. So it wasn't that planful. It was exposure to different people in the field. It was opportunity, and it led to a good path.
Now within psychology, there's a lot of different ways you can emphasize within that, just getting your education. Is there something that drew you into the rehabilitation counseling versus something else? Well,
my first graduate degree was in psychology with an emphasis in rehab, and frankly that was again driven, we were poor students, and it was driven by actually a grant being available that by the time we got in the program we lost anyway. So in the end, ultimately there was no funding, but it was even more driven by the fact that my father worked in the rehab field, and I was very close to him and knew a lot about that field, and was real interested. I was able to do most of my internship practicum experience that time in the prison system, so it matched well with a criminal justice background, and that was the path I ended up on. The thing about psychology is that it is really broad. At that point, knowing that at least in the state of Minnesota, you practice in the areas that you have competencies, so that's specific trainings that you have to declare to the board. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't too long after that I realized to do everything I wanted to do in the field of psychology, I would need to go back and do, in essence, a master's a doctorate in clinical psychology. And, so I pursued that in order to broaden the areas that I could practice within. And that's the great thing about psychology that people don't always know unless they're really look into the field, is that that various times, depending on interest, I've specialized in sexual abuse and HIV and AIDS and neuropsychology and sports psychology and hypnotherapy. There's always something new you can learn and a new direction you can go, and you can expand your work. And so it's a really dynamic and growing field and a lot of fun.
Well, I think everything that I'm reading in your bio, and our listeners are going to find out this shortly, is that it kind of all leads into what you're doing now with Orion Associates.
Right, right. Well, if as I do this interview, I start to think, there's this idea that some of this is planful, and a lot of my steps in life haven't been planful, but have been opportunities that came along the way that maybe didn't always seem like opportunities, but I think a strength in working and in even in the entrepreneurial aspect is how do you change, or how do you deal with barriers in your life and make them opportunities. And what happened to me is I had finished my doctorate, and I was in private practice. It was really going well, and I was enjoying what I was doing. And my mother had started a very small business in her basement. When my father had retired, they were in a different part of the state. He had joined her, and within a 3-month period, they were both diagnosed with different types of cancer. And I had gotten involved a little bit because I'd worked my way through college in a different kind of company doing some of the same things that they were doing. I got involved basically because of a health insurance issue when I left that company a little bit in their organization. And in some ways, actually in a lot of ways, reluctantly stepped more and more into a leadership position within that organization. And ultimately, that led to the creation of a new organization and several other companies. And so in some ways for me, a second career in business. It's the tying in of the psychological piece in the business, and that has made it an opportunity and a challenge and a period of personal growth for me as well.
That's amazing. I love it. Now let's, you've had all these amazing experiences, a lot to do with, traumatic stress related to, disaster, a number of things. Let's first talk about when you came on board as the CEO of Orion Associates, which is, well, I'll let you tell our listeners what it is.
Sure. Well, I'll say what Orion Associates, the organization I'm the CEO, is a management company. We provide management services, which are like human resource management, financial management, program management, primarily to social service agencies. We provide them to related and unrelated entities, for-profit and non-profit organizations within this field. And I have not left private practice. I still see people, but more and more I have shifted my work within the organizations, because since I took over in 2000, we're now about 12 times the size we were then. We've had tremendous growth with these different entities, and we currently serve close to 4,000 people within all these different organizations, and have grown from a company that in 2000 was about $5 million in revenues to this year around 110. So it's been a fast-paced, challenging, and exciting time. Mm-hmm. I guess the one thing I would say too is that we had a really good foundation in that a team of us, as we're kind of within this business, went back. I love school. I'm in a new program now. I have to always be learning something new. It's just a part of who I am, and it's not that it's just it's always something that has some direct application to what I'm doing. And one of the first things we did when we came in this organization is there were 5 of us in leadership positions, and we all went back to get our degree together in a cohort model, a master's in business and actually in organizational management. And that set a really good foundation for working together, for understanding each other, for supporting each other, and then for growing this organization. We really do run everything with a team approach. Ultimately, I am the one that if we all can't agree, we'll finally have to say, well, we're going to do it this way. But I would say 95% of the time we can come to a group agreement, and that's how we make decisions.
I love that. That speaks to, the culture and environment that you can build. Now, I know Orion Associations, it provides these services, but the distinction really is also your approach. One thing we were talking about before the interview was we were talking about the nonprofit when it comes to disaster relief and how you've set that up. Do you want to share more about that?
Sure. Social services as a whole is not a well-paid field. And so we're always working for ways to, try to get people to stay and work with us. And, we've done it a lot of different ways. We've done things like we had to put an addition on our building, and we went GREED. It's LEED certified. We put in a daycare center that the company underwrites for their staff so children can be at work with them, and we allow children at work. We have an open door policy for pets at work. We mostly get, although there's a guinea pig living here right now, and there's been rabbits, mostly it's dogs. Our CFO, when we built the addition, has a doggy door for her. She has a couple Labradors. And so there's always animals, there's always pets. We do things like, healthy snack day we provide for staff. We have events. We have everything. We have basketball court. We have a bike. We have lots of things to we have a shower and a workout room, things to keep staff and keep them happy at work. But one of the things that happened, and again, I'd like to say this is like well thought out and planned, but it's sometimes, when you're in a good place, good things happen. And for a long, long time, I volunteered with the Red Cross and as a mental health responder, and I happened to respond to Hurricane Katrina. And when I was there, it was very, very different from any response I'd ever been on, and that was that in the past you could always see support coming in and the infrastructure being put in place, and nothing was happening. And so I came back from that experience and feeling bad about leaving and not doing enough, and ended up talking to coworkers and colleagues, and within a couple weeks, we had put a semi together of supplies, and we'd gone down there and thought we, brought our little mops and rags, and ended up learning how to use crowbars and gut and shovels, and that began what ultimately is called a Headwaters Relief Organization. And we have a nonprofit. It's a disaster relief organization. It is not made up just of employees, but it's employees and community members. We've had over 1,000 volunteers participating. We have been all over, certainly still are in New Orleans. We run a free mental health center there, and Haiti, and on the East Coast with Sandy. Anywhere and everywhere in the upper Midwest with flooding and tornadoes. Just came back a couple weeks ago from Oklahoma. And that has been a powerful tool, not only because we have really focused as an organization on community commitment and volunteerism, which I'll talk a little bit more about from an organizational standpoint, but what we learned with Hurricane Katrina and our staff is that there's no better way to teach leadership skills than in some of this disaster response. We did it real carefully planned to mix people up. We're a pretty flat organization, so we divided people up in teams with people they didn't work with before. We still do that. You share rooms with people you haven't worked with before when you go on these responses, and everybody can step in and problem solve. And there's nothing. I was thinking in Oklahoma where there was a elderly man who was in the hospital that was hit by the tornado, had just had triple bypass surgery, couldn't get back to his home, he's having problems now with the insurance. There's a big gaping hole in the roof. We needed to put a tarp on it, didn't have the right kind of tarp, didn't have the right kind of nails, had no sometimes we have roofers join us because a lot of construction companies have volunteered with us, but we're up on the roof. I'm up on the roof, which I don't get up on the roof, at home. That's not something I do, but, I'm up there because, good Lord, if I'm going to have these other 3 people up on the roof, I better be up there too. And, we're trying to figure out how to put this humongous tarp that it's obviously someone's very expensive sign at one point onto this roof. You're kind of having to lay your body across it because it keeps blowing up, and you're laying on it, you think you're going to be blown away. It's that strong of a wind, and that kind of problem solving is something you can't teach people in some seminar. And that's what this has done for our organization. We have long-term people who have been here many, many years and are very committed in part to our volunteer movement. Headwaters in itself is a mixture of community and certainly any of our employees, but we give people paid time off to volunteer for anything of their choice. We sponsor at least 4 kind of local, like Feed My Starving Children or the MS Walk. We have about 4 events we sponsor as an organization. Headwaters, anything they do, in any of these events, you get paid time. I mean, you can take your time and go. You get paid your time off. We don't take time away from people for volunteering anything. As a result of that, we started to keep statistic on our volunteerism, and for 3 years we were at 97, 98, 97, 0.9 or something like that, and then last year we had 100% of all of our employees volunteer. And so we're really proud of that because that means there's a lot of hours and a lot of commitment going out to the community. So sorry, that was a really long answer.
No, I was envisioning you on top of a roof with a tarp, and then I was thinking to, my friends who, work, and they volunteer, and I think they were joking the other day about, you work in this field, if staying a job for 2 years is a long time, or having the luxury of a lunch is a luxury, and it's a lot of work. And I know that when it comes to benefits and being paid for what you're contributing, that's always the question. So to be able to give them that.
Yeah, it is, and it is hard. We do a lot of. We're really diversified. That's why there's many different kinds of companies here, because they do different kinds of services in different states or different parts. But a lot of our contracts are still governmental, and there's not a lot of room. Yeah. There's not a lot of margin. There's not a lot. Our salaries are they're good, but they're not great, and.
Yeah, another one was you're familiar with the term budget cut,
Absolutely. We have been suffering here in Minnesota. It's been a good year. We have a new governor. It's been good. But those experiences, even being up on the roof, partly I was up there to tell all of them, I have these 3 young people. One of them, she's been up on a roof before, actually in New Orleans, and I remember it in particular because I found out when we got back, here she's climbing up to hang on this peak, and I find out when we come back she's like 3 months pregnant, and she said, well, it was barely. I'm like, really? You're and I'm up there with them, and one of them's a fireman, and he's a volunteer fireman here too, and I am probably the least experienced up there, and I'm like basically up there to say, please don't, be careful. Are you watching where you're walking? And this roof has this big hole in it. And I'm like, do you know where it is anymore? Because we've got this tarp on it. Well, who do you think sits in the hole? Me. All of a sudden it's like, no, I'm in the hole. So anyway, it's a good learning experience for me too.
Well, I think that speaks volumes about your approach. That I may be the chief executive officer, and president, but that doesn't mean I'm not. I don't elevate myself on these
on a roof.
Yeah. Which so many. It's the irony just could go on. It sounds like for days. And it's interesting to watch, on television. You watch the disaster and the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy, Hurricane Katrina, Oklahoma, and there's a disconnect. But I mean, I imagine most of the recovery is that internal, that what your background is when it comes to working with people, that what it does to you on the inside. I mean, are those things that you still find yourself bridging with people you work with?
Yeah, we do. We've gotten over the years really good at doing an orientation up front, and when we're out there, when everybody comes in at night, we don't even spend a lot of time, but we'll sit down and kind of process what happened during the day, and we do a follow-up meeting for people who've been out to again talk about their feelings. So we have some of those steps in place where someone outside of the team comes in and processes with the team, because it is truly a level. I remember on this trip in Oklahoma, we were out, this poor man, he had lost his house. Well, he didn't even know he'd lost his house. He'd gone to his son's house, who had lost their house, but it was by the school, and the son had gone to try to help with the children in the school, and he was there with his daughter-in-law and their two children, and only got a call later on that his wife, who had been in their house, had literally, she had crawled in the tub, and then when the walls gave way, she crawled like into the furnace room, and then they found her in another part of the house. He'd lost his complete house. Well, what happened is she had her rings on in this tornado, her wedding band and her engagement ring, and they were gone. And so we were carefully, painstaking, going through the dirt, trying to see if we could find these rings with him, and cleaning up the lot. And at one point, someone said to me, "It would be so much better if couldn't you just tell everybody, let's go, let's line up, let's do it this way, let's do it." And I said, you know what? That's not part of the team. That's not what I do. I'm here as a team member, and at some point, someone on the team, and it happened to be a person who just was going out for the first time, said, well, how about if we do this, and kind of organize the team themselves. And so a lot of what we try to do here as an organization is give people the authority to lead, but also the impression and the support to know that for them to take those leadership steps, they won't in any way be punished, but they'll be rewarded. Mm-hmm. That we want to see people grow and develop as individuals. So
I think that's incredibly unique. I've worked for a number of in-house corporate settings, and there's that line that once you get to it, it makes people really uncomfortable at a higher level. And so you always wonder, well, if I cross this line, if I really feel like it's important, will I lose my job? Will I be punished? So that's amazing. Now let's talk about the newest company, Morningstar.
Right. Morningstar is a company that is located in Utah. We've been in Utah actually a little bit longer. It was before it came Morningstar, about 5 years. We went into Oklahoma last summer. We expanded to Tennessee last fall, and this spring we're now in Ohio. So it's a fast-growing organization. Mm-hmm. What Morningstar does is it provides financial services. It is a bridge between Medicare, Medicaid dollars and families. What is happening across the United States that is extremely cost-effective with health care is that families are being given the opportunity to manage those dollars. In the past, what would happen is that they would have to go through agencies. So an easy example would be, say you had a disabled child or even an elderly parent that needed to go to a vocational setting or a daycare or an elderly care during the day. You would have to funnel those dollars. You couldn't pick and choose as a family, so you're going to end up paying that overhead, whereas now families can directly manage their own funds. But in order to do that and decide, maybe you don't want to send your elderly parent to a daycare. Maybe there's a next-door neighbor or another family member that could provide that support and care. And what Morningstar does then is it provides that bridge in the management of the financial payment, the workers' comp, the Social Security, all of that is that bridge and then provides that oversight. So it's a rapidly growing program. Many states have implemented it already. We were in the first program. We in another organization were one of the first programs in Minnesota. So we've been doing it here in another organization for about 11 years. But then we branched out to learn how to do it in another state. In Utah, we were one of the first ones there. And both in Tennessee and Ohio, we are taking away from, the contract we ended up being awarded in Tennessee came from a company 40 times our size. But what we're known for is quality services and quality care. And sometimes what happens in organizations that big is that the families don't feel like they're heard or listened to in terms of issues or concerns. And the same is true in Ohio. We're just in the process of taking over that contract. It'll be completed by the end of the summer, and that was another larger organization. Whereas in Oklahoma, they're just starting up these services in the state, so we'll be one of the first organizations there. But it's a really dynamic business. It's really exciting, and it's really empowering to families with individuals that have disabilities, mental health issues, elderly parents. It's a pretty incredible new way of doing business in that field.
That's amazing. So you do all this, and you maintain a private practice.
Yeah, well, you know what? I have to see people. It's like I have to do the design. I mean, I have to go out on this work, and I have to see people because I think it's real easy to get caught up in all these business aspects, but I don't want to ever lose touch about what this is all about, and I don't want to lose my skills, and I want to always be able to touch that human element, and that's something else about our organization is from any one of us, we have another one of the companies has some residential homes, and any one of us in leadership, if we got in a situation where the staff person couldn't come and the manager of the house or the director or administrator couldn't be there, we're all prepared to walk in and do direct care and support. Mm-hmm. And it happens rarely, but it does happen. And I think the fact that all of our staff know that any one of us will do exactly what we ask them to do is another key part of what makes our organization really strong.
Now, for our listeners, if they want to learn more about Orion Associates, how is it that listeners, work with you on those services or even the volunteerism? Is that you'd have to come on as an employee to be part of the
No, okay. No, anybody. We have volunteers from 8 other states. We have volunteers from overseas. I was just in Haiti with someone from Germany and somebody from Washington, D.C., and one other person from Minnesota working. For Headwaters, you can just take a look at the website, headwatersrelief.org, and there are contact people there. And the same, and there's a Facebook, Headwaters is on Facebook, Headwaters Relief on Facebook, so any of those ways you can contact us. Certainly Orion Associates, you can find, you Google us and you can find us that way for the kind of parent organization, or, you know, so it's kind of a, I suppose, a step there, because some of the other organizations are older. I'm not quite sure how you would, you know, characterize that. And you know what, anybody can call me anytime too. My number is 763-450-5045, and I'm out and about a lot, you know, because I do still respond, but I always get back to people, and you can always leave me a message.
Excellent. Well, we will make sure for our listeners to have, you know, all those links and the contact that Rebecca just mentioned on our website. But you know, definitely Google Orion Associates, get familiar with what's happening, and the Headwaters Relief. It's incredible stuff. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your stories about being on a roof and falling into the hole, and just everything you're doing. It's so inspiring, so inspired. So love it.
Well, thank you for having me. That was an honor.
Well, and to our listeners, thank you for listening as always. Now get out there, build something beautiful. Until next time, take care.